Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Matthias. Hi, Emil.
Hello.
Hey, guys. Really great presentation about the linking stuff. I really like that. We should definitely try to implement something like that here. I wonder how difficult is that?
I think it's not very difficult to implement the support in the protocol, but it could be a challenge to implement the infrastructure needed with the lookups and databases and such. But that's maybe another issue.
Yeah, that's for.
And of course, we can share some experience from how we do it in Ericsson there as well. But for the protocol, I guess we can at least have it as an optional property to provide link possibilities.
Yeah, definitely. Let me open up the HackMD file. Let me see if I can find it here. Where is it? Here. No, this is not the agenda. Do we have the agenda document somewhere for this meeting?
In the calendar item, there's a HackMD link, right?
Yeah, but that's the one that points to the event vocabulary. Which is weird.
Nope.
Let me see.
But we don't have an agenda document for this, do we?
I think
the meeting notes, sorry.
Yeah, we had one, right?
Yes, I find it now. I placed it in the chat.
Thank you. In this chat or in, oh yeah, here.
In the chat. Maybe we should update the calendar invite with that one instead.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So we have today, so today is the 18th of May. Good stuff. So quick update on my side. I've sent a couple of pull requests today for Andrea and Emil to review, which are basically like refinements in the vocabulary, removing the buckets from the event types. I remember that there was an issue about that, and I can see that there was a discussion there in GitHub discussion. So maybe we can close that one after the pull requests are reviewed. I've started seriously thinking about like starting implementing something because we need some kind of a POC at some point. So yeah, I'm just trying to define how that, at least the first step towards like a POC would look like. And yeah, I was planning to share a bit of that during this meeting if everyone is okay with that. I think that Andrea might be joining later today. So maybe we should wait for him to join and see where he's up and if he has any news from you guys like Matthias and Emil.
Not from my part, unfortunately.
That's all right. I'm just coming. Yeah, go ahead.
Neither from me either, unfortunately.
Okay.
I know that Eric mentioned in Slack that he had some time to do things now recently, but maybe I'm not sure will he join, do you know, or
I have no idea. Maybe we can ping him.
Oh,
let me yeah, let me ping Eric. Eric he's offline. What's going on with my keyboard? Let me see. That's all right. I mean, I'm also kind of like trying to come back and catch up, and I got that like sense of urgency in our like last meeting, like the team meeting, that we definitely need a PLC. So yeah, I thought that let's start creating something based on the vocabulary draft, which is pretty simple, but at least it can be used for kind of like the basics of a POC. showing interaction between different things.
But was this the POC? Is this kind of like, just to wrap my head around it, was this like a converter, for example, between Kepton or Tekton or something?
Something like that. In general, what I was thinking is there are like few steps before reaching to that point. The first thing that I wanted to do is to create like a small library with the cloud events kind of like definition, right? So we need to map whatever we have in the vocabulary draft to cloud events. And that's, I would say, a pretty simple, mapping, but it needs to be done. And in order to do that, right, like you can do it like in an MD file, right? Like saying, the event type of this, event for like specifying that the pipeline is running or something like that is going to be rendered in a cloud event in this way by setting the cloud event type to this, to this type. And then of course you need kind of like the code that will create that structure and send that structure to another system. So basically that's where I wanted to start, by just creating a simple library and the cloud event structures. So at least we can say that we can emit one event every time that a pipeline runs, no matter if it's in Tekton or Jenkins or whatever other CI pipeline that it's running, can emit one of these events, and it has kind of like the structure and kind of like the required fields that needs to be filled for that specific event. As soon as we have that, then we can use that library to say, okay, Tekton is emitting these events, and Kepton, for example, is waiting for these events, so we can translate between one and the other, right? And as soon as we have that, then we can say to Tekton, hey Tekton, if you emit this event using this library, then Kepton will be able to understand you if Kepton is receiving those events by using that library or using any other implementation of that library, basically by reading the cloud events content that it's being sent. I got kind of like that impression from Alois from Kepton as well, that they are interested in in kind of like seeing that cloud event format and having a say on the format itself. So by having a small library and kind of like the basic data for each of these cloud events, we will get them involved and saying, yeah, but you're missing this field or you're missing this property, and the same with the Tekton guys, and with the same with every other project, I would assume. I know that we have Google Summer of Code now happening, and we will have someone creating there like some Jenkins events, so we can also get them involved into the process of refining these events, at least playing around. If we have like 10 or 20 events defined there, then we are talking about something that is concrete, and there is a library already, kind of like an SDK, allowing you to create these events and programmatically send them to different tools. Does that sound like a good idea?
I guess it sounds pretty simple. So
yeah, it's pretty simple. It's kind of like the first step, I would say. The next, and again, we will have the chance to improve the vocabulary documents, plus have the cloud mapping events mapping in there, plus a small library that we can just share with people, and people can just submit pull requests if they want to add a new event or support a new event that is defined in the vocabulary. Once we have that, then we just can like build that other component more like as a demo, right? Like as just a showing for conferences and stuff of a translator between different tools. And again, the tools can be whatever. It doesn't really need to be Tekton, and it doesn't need to be Kepton. Just I thought about like those two projects because we have people involved from those two projects, but we can add any other project like Jenkins or any other CI/CD pipeline or any other tool that it's out there that we can demonstrate.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But do you think that Kepton would listen natively on the on this new event type, or should we convert it to their format?
I think that nowadays we will just need to convert to Tekton format, Kepton format, and any other tools format because of time restrictions, right? I know that Kepton, they want to adopt whatever events we defined, but they have a tool already that it's already listening for certain event types, and because they have like a real implementation, they know exactly what what is the information that they need in order to work and correlate events and all that stuff. So I'm pretty sure that our initial kind of like version of the events, it's not going to be enough. That's why I want to get the initial version so they get involved and they add all this stuff that we would probably be missing.
Yeah, so basically it's one event sender and one event listener.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep, yeah, exactly. And imagine that like that POC being kind of like the router between these components, just doing the translation, which I think that Captain is doing already internally. I'm pretty sure that they are translating a bunch of stuff for like their integrations, right? If they want to integrate with any tool, now they cannot rely on their on their own event formats. They probably are just picking up external events and then translating. And we have Eric. Hi, Eric.
Hello, sorry for calling in late. I completely lost track of time.
No worries, no worries. We were talking about like the first step of creating a POC. And I think that that's why we pinged you, because you mentioned at some point that you had some free time. And I'm trying to define that and trying to put some time on creating kind of like the initial steps there.
That sounds very interesting. And yes, I will have time for that. And I would like to get involved as well. It's a very interesting area for me.
So what I was mentioning to Matthias is that I'm trying to define those first steps. And I think that even like the first step, and it's pretty basic step, is to basically create the cloud events mapping for the events that we have in the vocabulary. I think that that's an exercise that it's going to help us to refine the vocabulary documents. And as soon as we define the cloud events kind of like mapping to our events, we can create a small library to basically emit these events for us and have the kind of like the events structure. As soon as we have that, then we can start talking about creating a POC, integrating different tools together. But by just having that small library with the kind of like cloud events structure and the definitions of the supported events, I think that we will have something to invite more people over to help us to review those event structures and kind of like the information that is being sent with these events.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep, cool. So what I can do is, while we talk about this, because I know that we have kind of like CDCon coming. So what I can do is doing this week or early next week, I can share a repository with just a basic library defining the basic cloud event types. And maybe Eric, what you can help me with is to basically, we will need to create kind of like another document where we start mapping kind of like the properties that we are defining in the vocabulary to the events that are in that repository.
Yeah. I tried reading up earlier, or last week, I guess, on how to actually define a schema for this. So my take was that somehow the schema, it's sort of broken into several parts. Like you have a schema for each event data, and then you have a separate schema for the events themselves, I guess. I didn't quite understand it. I guess what I'm saying is I would need to read or find a proper cloud events schema, not a schema for cloud events itself, but a schema for someone that uses cloud event, just to have that as a base would be interesting. I'm not sure if any of you here in the meeting know of such a schema that I could use as a source of inspiration. You
mean a schema for the events?
Yes.
So basically this is a tricky thing, right? Like cloud events doesn't define much in general, so you can like extend cloud events. And you want to define, I think that I'm not entirely sure if we should define kind of like a schema. I mean, we can define a schema for the extension in this case. But then we can just use, JSON schemas or whatever.
Yeah. So the cloud event schema will, for instance, define that there should be an event type, but it doesn't really help us define what event type matches to what data type. In some sense, the event itself will contain that information, but I assume at some point there should be a schema that actually says what events we have, exactly what data schema is used for each event, etc., etc. So that is the format that I'm wondering how that is built.
Yeah, definitely we can research about like how other people is creating their own cloud events schemas, if they are, right? Like, for example, I would expect like Captain to have that. I think that they share kind of like the documentation on their events and the data that is expected for each of these events. And we can take a look at what tools are they using to define that, if they are using any tools.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So for what we do for Tecton is, I mean, for the event type, we just document what the events type available are. And well, for the body, it's pretty straightforward in the sense that because Tecton is based on CRDs, so custom resources, every time a custom resource triggers an event, we just use the definition and status of the class of the resource itself as body of the event, so that you get all the information. In that sense, the schema for that is defined in the CRD schema itself. So we
sounds like a Kubernetes way of doing those cloud events, and I think that's kind of like okay. The problem is that in this case, the events are completely separated from the components that are generating them. So we cannot trust that there is a Kubernetes resource for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So Andrea, thank you for joining. And what we were discussing is kind of like the initial steps for a POC. And basically what I was trying to say is that I will spend some time in creating kind of like that initial cloud events mapping with the stuff that we have in the vocabulary, plus a small library in Go to actually create those cloud events, right? Like it's going to be pretty simple, but I think that by just having those two things, we can invite people to review the event, kind of like the event types, the structures, the mapping, and we can involve people from Captain, from you guys, from Tecton, and from other projects to say, okay, yeah, this is good, but this is all the other information that it's missing in there.
Okay. So are you going to wrap it around the cloud event SDK?
Yep.
Which is in Go? Okay, perfect.
Yep, I will do that. Yep.
Do you need a space to host it? I think we could use the SIG events repo to begin with. But
yeah, if you give me a repo, I already have something that I need to clean up a little bit, but it's basically that it's two things. It's a Go library and it's a binary that you can use from the command line to create the events. And it doesn't have anything besides that, right? Like, so there is no integration with any other tool. There is no relationship with any other project. And the only purpose of this thing is just to emit our cloud events and to have kind of like the mapping from the vocabulary to basically a cloud event type.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think for a start. I was thinking just to keep it simple for now, we could just store it in a folder under the SIG events repo.
Okay.
And then eventually we can create a new repo. If it
Up
makes
to you.
sense.
I don't know. The problem of storing it in this repo is that no, I think that there is no problem. As soon as I can just send pull requests and people can review them, right? Or I should just push to a branch or something like that.
I think we can just keep like the trunk-based approach and just put it to the main branch through a PR. I mean,
okay.
We can keep it simple. I mean, we don't need to have any approval workflow, I think, for this experimentation.
Yep, whatever works better, right? Like a new repo will work, directory there in the repo as well. So I can just submit something there that we can start reviewing. I would appreciate, I know that Eric will have some time. Eric, if you want to just jump into that code and add stuff as well, that will be great. I just need probably a few days, probably until Monday, to clean up and just push.
Good, then I have a few days to learn Go because I haven't used it before.
Don't worry, I mean, I'm still learning as well, so it's going to be pretty straightforward.
Sounds good.
That'd be great. So as soon as we have that, I could also try and see if there is anything I can do on Tecton's side to emit those events as well. So
that's what I think. As soon as we have like a small library, then adding that into Tecton should be pretty straightforward, right? Because you can just use the library to create events in certain places.
Yes. So I was thinking maybe I can create a simple controller based off the Tecton controller, which the only thing it does, it sends the events. But I can basically use the base code structure for the main controller. And instead of sending plain cloud events, I can send the cloud events from your library. The only bit that is missing is kind of defining some kind of not standard, but sometimes, yeah, some kind of standard. Maybe I was thinking annotations that we could put on task and pipelines on Tecton side to understand what kind of abstraction does that pipeline represent, because pipelines and tasks in Tecton are very high level, so there's no concept of build or deployment or testing and so forth. But if we could annotate the resources, then we should be able to send more specific events as well.
Makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. I will try to reach out to Captain guys to see kind of what kind of integration we can create like easily, right? Like the same thing. If we submit some of these events, where do we put kind of like the transformation layer so they can just get these events and do something? And even if it's like a small interaction, I think that we will have enough to show that this is valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it could be something like, I don't know, build an image or some build pipeline in Tecton side, which sends an event, and then Captain picks it up and does some deployment with it or some other logic. So
perfect. Yep. If that sounds good, I think that's kind of like what we should focus on the next couple of weeks. Andrea, I also sent a couple of pull requests removing the buckets from the events. So when you have time, please take a look.
Yes, I started looking at those. I think they look okay. So if if everyone is okay with those, with me going ahead, I think I will just approve them. And
yeah, I've already approved them. I think they look good.
Okay, good.
Okay, cool.
For the proof of concept, just from my understanding, what will carry the events between Tecton and Captain?
That's the beauty of this. Well, it can be, so what will carry? So you can send it via HTTP. I'm pretty sure that we can start with HTTP and then just find some other transports.
I was thinking if we use some sort of event bus like NATS or something like that, then we could for like demoing purposes, we could also attach something else that just visualizes the events that are sent. So you can see that, okay, Tecton does something and then Captain does something else, but you can also like monitor the events itself on some sort of simple dashboard or whatever we have.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. What I've used before is basically I created kind of like a Knative broker, which is basically a cloud events broker. And then you can tap into that broker to show the messages that are flowing, right? But yeah, we can definitely use any other tool that allows us to monitor cloud events that are being sent.
Yeah, we don't have to overcomplicate it, but it's nice in a demo setting to just be able to show that, yes, now this event was sent, this event was sent, this event was sent.
What tool did you mention before? Can you share kind of like a link? So we can
I was just talking about any type of message bus. You can have several subscribers to the same message.
Yep. So something like Kafka, right? Like sending the event via Kafka or something like that.
Yeah. Knative eventing.
We can use that. Yeah.
Abstractions, so you can define channels. You can have in-memory channel, or you can use it on top of Kafka. You can have it. That could be one way.
Yeah. For now, I will be just happy by having the kind of like the library with the initial cloud events. And as soon as we have that, then we should be able to use any cloud events monitoring tool to just show the cloud events that are being emitted, and then show the interaction between the tools.
I shared a link to the Golang SDK for cloud events. And there it says NATS. Was that what you're talking about, Eric?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be an @stat, but just some sort of message bus-like thing might be cool for that purpose. But Kafka will be fine as well.
Yeah,
but you see, it's Kafka, NAT, STAN, PubSub, or MQP or HTTP support. So it's
that's great. Really good.
Yeah. That's why kind of like if we use the Golang SDK for cloud events, we would just have access to all these mappings. And again, if you use Knative, we then can just choose any of those things. Like I think that they have support for Kafka, NATs, and HTTP broker, so that should be all right. But again, the problem here is the complexity of the demo, right? Like setting it up and showing something meaningful. So I will try to focus on that first, trying to make sure that at least Tecton, for example, and Kepton can receive these events, and see if we can extend. So if we can extend, like the thing that Andrea was mentioning is really nice. If he can do something in the Tecton side to emit these events, that will be great. And it will avoid that kind of like transformation layer in the middle for the tools to understand each other. If we can do something like that for Kepton, that will be awesome. But yeah, that's why I think that if we have something, then we can just call these guys and say, hey, can you implement something quickly to understand these events so we can just demo it. But first we need to do something. We need to have something for them to see.
Yeah.
Great. That's all I have from my side. I don't know if this group, like I know that this group had a couple of meetings before. I haven't been joining, but I think that I'm fully back now.
No, I also haven't been super present lately, but I'm not sure if Andrea or Emil have some updates from the sort of regular SIG events stuff that affects us.
I've joined the last meeting, and it was, for me, it was very, very important that we start working on a POC, because we need to show something, and CDCon is coming. So I got that feeling. Yeah, let's build something now. So Eric, if you're around, I will definitely ping you. And
yes, please do. Whenever you have something, just ping me. I can't promise that I will be available every hour of every day, but I definitely have time to work with this. So, and I want to do it as well.
Great.
I think one thing, I'm not saying, I don't think it's urgent. I think much of it can wait until after the POC is done, but there are an increasing number of discussions in GitHub that are sort of not getting resolved. So they're just getting old, which means we either have to have the discussions again at some point, or I don't know what to do with them. So maybe that's a lesson learned. That's rather than creating too many discussions at the same time, maybe we should just like park some issues and then create a discussion for it later. I don't know how to handle it, but right now there are probably around 20 discussions, and I don't think more than 1 or 2 of them are sort of resolved in any way.
Yeah, that's a good point. We are good creating discussions, but not resolving them, right? Maybe we can just try to prioritize the active ones, like the ones that were created in some way. We just rank them and then just discuss them in the regular meetings. And the ones that are related to the vocabulary, we just discuss them here. But the ones that are not related strictly to the vocabulary, we just move to the main meeting.
Yeah, I think Andrea mentioned that as something that I could do, which I haven't done, is to like really try to figure out what is the minimal set of questions we need to answer to get something out the door. And I think doing the POC will definitely help us identify those questions and focus down on it. So I think it's a great way of doing it.
I agree. Yeah.
Good.
Right. Is anyone familiar with Kepton in terms of deploying it, or what is the footprint? I'm trying to figure out if the demo is something that we will be able to run in like in a local kind cluster or something like that, or if we need some infrastructure to run it.
I will try to find that out by installing it after pushing the initial commit library. I will try to find that out, because I haven't used it, and I'm guessing that it's lightweight, but I'm not entirely sure. So I just need to do that exercise, and yeah. But if not, I mean, I think that if not, we can just create like a cluster somewhere and just put it there. I'm not sure.
I haven't used it, but when I read documentation on GitHub, it says it uses this K3S. So it should be quite
okay.
lightweight.
Okay, cool.
Nice. Yeah, Tecton itself is also quite lightweight. So if we have a lightweight option for like a message broker, for like a cloud event broker, then I think it should be possible to run everything locally and have a nice demo that way.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds like a yeah, that sounds like a good idea, just to make sure that we can run it locally and not that we don't really need like large infrastructure to run it. Good stuff. All right. Let me see.
Another thing we could do is to, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's just silly, but use something like SME or some to, you know, maybe connect environments across 2 different laptops. It could be a few.
You mean to, okay, just to run stuff like distributed, like in different clusters that are not running in the same place?
Yeah. It's just sorry, just brainstorming.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we can focus on a single cluster first. And
yeah, and I think that we can always find like a way to have like one cluster in a cloud provider. I'm just hoping to have that possibility, like at least create a cluster for a demo, just deploy something in there, and then just shut it down after the presentation, for example. So yeah. Cool. I can see that Viva, you put something there in the comments that you are going to share a POC as well. I'm wondering what that POC is. If you can share some more details, maybe if you want to do it in Slack, if you don't want to do it here, just do it in Slack so it's not like deleted when we finish this conversation. Oh, that's interesting. Webhook payload delivery service. That's really nice. Yeah, to local host. Yeah, I've seen that some of those tools before. Yeah, Andrea, that's really good. Maybe we can take a look at some of those. First, we need to figure out if Captain is lightweight enough. Let me see. Okay, guys. It looks like you can run it in Minikube. So I'm expecting that you should be able to run it locally.
Yeah, it said something about 6 cores and 14 gigabytes of RAM, so it should be not so super difficult to get started, I guess.
Yeah,
and that was probably for a production environment. So
yeah, it should be not that large. Cool. Guys, any other topic for today's meeting regarding the vocabulary? Again, I think that it's all about like looking at the events that we have defined there, like in the directory, and start thinking about the specific properties that we want to add and the kind of like the required data that we need to send for all the events. And yeah, as soon as I share the code, I will expect that to be wrong, completely wrong. So feel free to send comments and changes. Maybe something that can help me, Andrea, is can you share, I remember that you shared at some point kind of like the Tecton events. Can you share kind of like the code where those events are being created or something like that?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, if you share that for me, just to take a quick look and make sure that I follow some of the same patterns. Are you using the Go SDK as well there, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that it's going to be pretty similar to that. So.
Just a second. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, must have been in Slack.
Okay. Is there any other topic that Anyone wants to share or talk about today?
Do you have any discussions we can go through?
Any discussions regarding the vocabulary, I would say, because if not, I think that maybe that's kind of like the exercise that we need to do, Matthias. It's like try to rank or try to in some way prioritize those discussions.
On a previous one we had, as you see in the protocol there, we used this meeting to walk through a couple of them to discuss. So that was kind of like if there was something around, if it was a discussion that would help us to get forward with the POC.
Makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. Do you want to take a lead on that? Like, let's take a look at the discussions that are open. And
it was more a question. If you had something, if somebody had a discussion, I thought was good to take a look at.
I'm not sure what the scope is, but I think when it comes to like things that are sort of like a lot of discussions are things that we may want to add in the future, and those we can skip for now. But the change discussion, which I think you, Matthias, brought up, maybe that is something that we should try to solve. I know you have commented on it, and I just had an AP to move the discussion into a discussion, but like what is a change and what is connected to it? If in the POC, maybe not in the initial one, but we want to add some way for Gerrit or GitHub or something else to actually start a pipeline.
Yeah. So I guess that the definition of what the change is, if we, yeah, I remember that discussion, and I will definitely go and try to add some comments there. Because I do see this being kind of like linked to the POC in some way, right? Because again, if you have a pull request triggering a pipeline, that would make sense.
Yeah, and I think, I'm not sure if we will have time for it, but if we can include that in POC, it's a very powerful way to like show just any regular developers that, okay, I can actually, with my code change, I can make a lot of interesting stuff happens. So that might be cool from that perspective.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. I'm not entirely sure what's the action point now, right? Like we definitely need to solve that and try to figure out how to define change and to make sure that we have an event for that, right?
Yes, so I think the initial discussion was related to where we draw the line between, I think you, Matthias, call it a proposal, which I like, so something that could go into a repository. And then we have the change, which is when something actually changes on like the main branch in the repository. And then we also have a commit, which, well, an individual commit. And those three, it's a bit tricky to draw the line between those three. And it's important, I think, for the vocabulary that we do have clear lines, because a proposal is not the same thing as a commit, and a change is not the same thing as a commit either. And the difference between a proposal and a change, it could be that they are the same thing, but we should at least make sure that in the vocabulary we know what we mean. And then we have branch as well, which is also tangentially related to at least a change in some systems. So yeah, there's some things to iron out there. But I think a POC might actually help us have the discussion as well. Like, okay, I will have this use case that I need to support, and I can't do it with the vocabulary because the vocabulary is a bit muddly from some aspect.
Yeah, totally. But Eric, I think that if you and Matthias and Andrea are discussing this already, I think that sending a pull request to the right file in the vocabulary will help to move the discussion forward, in a sense that we can have a proposal for what do we think that exactly is, right? Like change, proposal, and all these new terms, and the events related to that, and then we can just make a decision on that. Because I guess that's how kind of like the POC will move forward, right? We'll just have one that it will probably not work, and then we will just need to have something in the vocabulary to be able to change the POC, if you know what I mean. Like first the definition and then the implementation.
Just so we don't end up in a circular way of working, because last time I tried creating a pull request, I was asked to move everything to discussions instead. So as long as we, but I think what I've learned from that experience was don't create big pull requests. I will create smaller pull requests based on the discussion. So I will happily give that a shot. I will take Matthias' proposal with the proposal and try to create a pull request from that.
I think that's great, right? Like focused on one event or on two, 3 events that we already know, and we kind of like are making a change now, right? Like it's just a diff, it's not a completely new thing. So I think that's great. If you can do that, that will be really appreciated.
Yeah, I'll put it on my to-do list. I should have time to do that before next week at least.
Yeah, the other thing about changes that just came to mind is, I mean, if you're going to have like GitLab or GitHub hosting the code where the change is made, they have custom events, their own type of events they will send. So either we need to put a translation layer there again, or the alternative could be for there just to use the native events just to trigger Tecton, and then use our own specific cloud events between Tecton and Captain only. I guess the advantage if we had our own events and translation layer on the change as well, then if you had something like you were mentioning, Eric, having some tool that receives all events and visualizes what's going on, then it would get also the change event. So in that sense, yeah, that would be nice. But we'll need some kind of translation layer then for that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe that's not a super big problem, because I'm guessing there are probably more tools that can do like unit tests or that can do various types of orchestration than there are tools that handle changes and reviews. Like probably you have the big ones like GitHub and GitLab and Bitbucket and Gerrit maybe.
Yeah.
So maybe there's not an infinite, or there wouldn't be an infinite in the other direction either, but not so many different things to support. So maybe it could be okay in that direction to have some sort of translation layer. And we can focus in the POC and the other parts. But convincing Gerrit via a plugin to send our cloud events should not be super difficult. I know you, Matthias, have something similar, I think. Or you mentioned that Axis wrote it, someone that has to for Gerrit and Eiffel. So.
Yeah, we have for Gerrit and Eiffel.
So, yeah, so something like that, probably. I think Gerrit plugins are they written in Java? I don't remember. They might be. But still,
Yeah,
it wouldn't be that hard. There is a Cloud Events SDK for Java as well. So. Yeah, that won't be priority 1 for the POC, but it could still be an interesting thing to look into.
Totally. Yeah, so it's like a good idea.
So yeah, if you have.
No, the other discussion that could be relevant for us is the concept of heavyweight versus lightweight events. But maybe, Matthias, you wanted to bring up something related to a change. Then you should talk before I switch topic.
No, I was actually trying to switch topic. You had a discussion on what do we want to present at CDCon. I wondered, are you satisfied with that discussion from what we have here, or should we? You want some more in that one?
So the actual sort of time slot we have for CDCon is mostly going to be some. It's called Birds of a Feather, I think, some sort of like discussion between people who have some knowledge or people who are interested. But it would be cool to have sort of some proof of concept type thing to launch when we are doing that talk. That, oh, by the way, you can go here and read this information, and here you can see things actually working together. So for that, the discussion that we are having today sounds perfect for that, because we will have some sort of, hopefully, something more concrete that we could actually run and ask people to look into.
Okay, so basically we're kind of like, I don't know how we want to deal with this. Should we end the discussion then, or should we add in information and close it? I don't know how these discussions work.
I can at least try to summarize my thoughts on it, and then I haven't looked into how to close topics. Maybe it's possible, or maybe it's not. But for me, at least, I'm satisfied with what information we have now. So.
Good.
Same. Yeah, sounds good.
So the other thing I wanted to bring up was this heavyweight versus lightweight messages. I think we seem to be in agreement, most of us, that lightweight messages with links is the way to go. So maybe there isn't much to discuss, and we can just say that that's what we will go for. Rather than trying to dump absolutely every piece of information we have, we will send links to where people can fetch more information. That does make things a little bit tricky, of course, because the information that is available in the link to more information will probably have different structures depending on what tool you're using. So maybe there is something to think about there, but again, maybe not for the POC.
Yeah, I would definitely leave that for after the POC, but definitely a discussion that it's worth having. I think that, yeah, definitely, and I really like the linking presentation, so we need to start thinking about that. And as Emil mentioned at the very beginning of the conversation, I think that links are good if we define them here, kind of like in the vocabulary as like extra data. The problem is then kind of like, okay, we will need to start thinking about like the implementation, who implements that for searching links and for transversing different objects, right? So it becomes much more complicated than that's just the vocabulary.
I'm not sure. Do we think that the SIG interoperability group will take the universe in the direction where whatever those links are pointing to is more likely to be similar? It seems to me that, even though it's a massive scope, of course, but at least that seems to be in line with what that group is trying to achieve. I think some people here are part of that group as well. So basically saying that since both GitHub and GitLab and Gerrit has commits because they are wrapping Git repositories, if I ask those three systems for information about the commit, like how different would that be? Is that something that the SIG interoperability group will like provide guidelines for or recommendations for or something like that?
They're at least discussing it. Metadata discussion, and there I guess we're starting to look in, or I'm not going to be part of especially of that investigation, but I was looking to SPDX to see what they have today and if we can align something there. Because it's a protocol or actually an ISO standard for defining package information. It started out in license handling, I think, and I was transitioned in, and they are in the version 3.0. They are looking into going into like CI/CD domain and actually getting more information out there. So that's why interoperability is going to be looking into that one. So hopefully we can get that discussion can help us in how information is going to be looking. For example, if we talk about a Git commit, how does that look, and so on.
Right, but I think one of the benefits of our protocol would be also to define at least like a base set of fields that should be in the events, and there would be the responsibility of the translation layer or of the source system directly to like put the right information in the right place. I mean, if one wants to dig in and have more information, I think definitely this would be helpful. So in my mind, when I was thinking about lightweight versus heavyweight messages, it was more like, thinking about actually like more heavyweight kind of artifacts, like log files or JUnit, XML, this kind of artifacts, and those would be like links to basically text files or binaries that you can download, and the format could be standard. If like you have a JUnit XML, that's the standard that is defined in that space.
Yeah, I think that again, like the POC will just allows us to see that clearly, right? Like if we want to send a log event, then we will need to figure out what's the information that we will put in there.
when it comes to size and so on, Cloud Events is actually recommending users to keep the events compact. So it recommends not to embed large data, but it recommends to link it. If you read it up, when I sent the link to it, size limits when you have time, is the last paragraph there. They talk about that if you link to information, you can also have this differentiation of access control. So you can publish an event, but you don't need to publish the log, because to get the log, you need to have a login. But then you can send events pretty widely, but you don't need to send out detailed information about the log.
Yeah, I remember reading that. That's true. Yeah, so we even have support for from Cloud Events for having smaller events with links. That's good.
Makes sense. Good stuff. Any other topics that we want to cover today?
Nothing else from my side.
Just for protocol corrections and so on. In the last meeting from 20th, there was a bunch of actions. How do we want to handle if you resolve one of them?
Let me take a look at what were the actions, because I was in that meeting, so I'm not entirely sure. Participants. Oh, yeah, so we have all those actions. Okay. I think that the actions can be marked now, right? Like you can just mark the ones that were done. And I think that if we still think that we have those actions to be executed, we should move them to the new meeting, right? So I will just copy the participants to today's meetings, and then we should definitely have the action section in there. Actions. So basically what I'm doing is I'm just copy the sections, like the action sections to today's meeting, to the notes. And if you resolve the action, you can just mark it with the check, because I think that they're using checks to mark that. And then the ones that were not done, we should move them to today's meeting. So they are actions for the next one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you want us to mark it before you move this thing then?
Yeah, definitely.
Huh?
But you can do it. Yeah, you can do it later if you want. But then I think at some point we will just need to copy the ones that were not resolved, so we can just keep track of those. And you can add yourself as a participant as well onto the meeting, so we can just keep the notes like aligned. Eric, I will really appreciate if you can just summarize what you can heard today on the discussion for CDCon, so we can start formalizing whatever we want to show and what's the current plan at least. Yeah, I just posted a reply to what we want to present at CDCon discussion. I'm not sure if that was what you're looking for, but there I have what I've understood at least. Perfect. Yeah. But I will I will do whatever I can to learn a bit of Go, but then I will wait for your patch or commit that you wanted to send me, and I will look into that. That sounds fun. Yeah, great, awesome. Okay, I need to jump to another meeting. So, guys, thank you very much, and see you in a couple of weeks. I will definitely share the links and basically ping you, Eric, as well in the channel. And Andrea, if you have time to take a look at that as well, that will be great, because I'm pretty sure that it's not going to be perfect. So whatever suggestion on style or whatever else that you see that we can just quickly adapt, let me know.
Sure.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah. Take care. Have a good week.
Thank you.
For today. Bye.
Bye.